Raya was an ordinary 13-year-old girl who loved playing outside with her friends and going to school every day. She was bright, cheerful, and full of energy. That day started like any other normal day. She wore her favorite blue dress, and her school shoes were polished. She was running late for her math class and rushing down the stairs of her school building when suddenly, her foot slipped on the edge of a step. She tried to hold on to the railing, but her balance was lost. In a moment, she fell hard, twisting, her leg awkwardly beneath her. A sharp pain shot through her leg and she screamed out loud. Teachers and students nearby rushed toward her. Her leg looked wrong. It was bent in a strange way, and she could not stand up. She was scared and crying softly now, trying to stay calm, but the pain was strong. One of her teachers, Mrs. Sharma, quickly called for help and told the school nurse to prepare for an ambulance. But the school nurse was busy, so Mrs. Sharma took charge and immediately called an ambulance herself. Within a few minutes, an ambulance arrived at the school gate, and the paramedics gently lifted Rhea onto a stretcher, careful not to move her broken leg too much. Rhea held tightly onto Mrs. Sharma's hand during the ride to the nearest hospital. The hospital was well known in the city but not very big. Mrs. Sharma was worried but tried to calm Rhea by telling her that everything would be fine, that the doctors would take care of her. However, Rhea's leg hurt more with every bump on the road, and tears kept rolling down her cheeks. When they arrived at the hospital, the emergency room was crowded. People were waiting in long lines, and the noise of coughs, cries, and conversations filled the air. The receptionist looked tired and asked Mrs. Sharma for the girls' details. They were directed to wait for their turn, and soon Rhea was seated in a wheelchair by the side of the room. Her leg was elevated, and the paramedics applied a temporary splint, but her pain was unbearable. She could barely keep still, and every few minutes she groaned quietly. A nurse named Meena was on duty that day in the emergency room. She was a middle-aged woman who had worked at the hospital for many years. Meena was known to be strict and somewhat impatient, especially when the emergency room was busy. She was talking to another nurse, laughing and sharing stories from her personal life. Her phone was always in her hand, and she often checked messages or social media. The emergency room was full, but some patients seemed more urgent than others. Still, Meena was clearly distracted. Mrs. Sharma approached Meena and explained Rhea's injury and the urgency. She asked kindly if the girl could be seen quickly because she was in terrible pain. Meena glanced at Rhea, who was shivering and clutching her leg tightly, but then looked away, saying, "We have many patients ahead of you. Wait your turn." Her tone was firm but without much care. Rhea tried to speak up. "Please, my leg hurts a lot. I can't wait." But Meena did not respond to her. Instead, she continued scrolling on her phone. Minutes turned into an hour, and Rhea's condition worsened. Her face was pale, and she was sweating from the pain. Mrs. Sharma tried, again speaking to Meena politely, reminding her that a broken leg is a serious injury. But Meena only shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, but there are other emergencies. You will have to wait." The waiting room had other patients who were in pain or discomfort too, but no one seemed to notice how much Rhea was suffering. Young doctor named Arjun, who had recently joined the hospital, noticed Rhea while passing by. He saw how pale she looked and the way she was barely holding back tears. He wanted to help, but wasn't sure if he had the authority to take her case without the nurse's approval. He hesitated and kept walking, feeling troubled inside. Rhea's leg was throbbing constantly now, and she was losing hope. She did not understand why no one was helping her, why the nurse was ignoring her cries for help. She thought about her father, Dr. Rajveer Sinha, who owned this hospital, but she never thought that he would come into this story that day. At that moment, she felt alone and scared. Mrs. Sharma, frustrated by the neglect, took a brave step. She quietly took out her phone and called Dr. Sinha, explaining the situation without mentioning the nurse's name. Dr. Sinha was away at a medical conference in another city, but the moment he heard that his daughter was in pain and waiting, without care, he was shocked and deeply worried. He immediately contacted the hospital's chief administrator and instructed them to review the situation and take action. The hospital's security office checked the CCTV footage in the emergency room. It showed exactly what had happened. How Nurse Mina had ignored Raya, how she had been distracted and inattentive. The chief medical officer rushed to the emergency room and ensured that Raya was moved to the front of the line. She was finally seen by the doctors, who began to prepare her for treatment. Rhea was scared and tired, but relief washed over her face as she was taken inside the emergency room. Her leg was examined and X-rays were taken. The doctors confirmed that her leg was badly broken and would require surgery. She was given painkillers, and the medical team worked quickly to stabilize her. Meanwhile, Dr. Sinha booked a flight back to the hospital. His heart was heavy with worry and anger, but he remained calm on the outside. He knew that getting angry would not solve the problem, but he was determined to make sure that no patient, especially his own daughter, would be ignored or mistreated in his hospital. Back in the emergency room, the staff were talking quietly about what had happened. Some felt ashamed. Others were worried about the consequences. Nurse Mina still had no idea that the girl she ignored was the hospital owner's daughter. She continued with her duties, unaware that a storm was coming. As the hours passed, Rhea was moved to the recovery room after her surgery. She was still weak, but felt better knowing that she was finally getting the care she needed. Mrs. Sharma stayed by her side, promising that everything would be all right. This first day marked the beginning of many changes in the hospital. Changes that would teach everyone the importance of kindness, respect, and attention in healthcare. For Rhea, it was a day full of pain and fear, but also hope. Little did she know that this painful experience would bring important lessons to the hospital. She called home. After Raya was finally taken inside the emergency room, things began to move quickly. The doctors and nurses started working together to examine her leg and make her as comfortable as possible. But outside the emergency room, many things were happening quietly that Rhea did not know about. Arjun, the young doctor who had noticed Rhea in the waiting area earlier, was still thinking about her. He felt guilty that he had not acted sooner when he saw her suffering. He wanted to do more, but he was still new and unsure about breaking rules. Still, he stayed close by, hoping to learn from the senior doctors and help when he could. Meanwhile, Mrs. Sharma, the teacher who had been by Rhea's side since the accident, decided she could not just sit quietly anymore. She felt responsible for Rhea's safety and well-being. While Rhea was getting treated, Mrs. Sharma went to a quiet corner of the hospital and made a phone call. She dialed a number she hoped would get quick help. Rhea's father, Dr. Rajveer Sinha. Dr. Sinha was at a conference hundreds of kilometers away. He was speaking about healthcare and hospital management in front of many important doctors and officials. But the moment he heard the voice on the phone telling him about Raya's accident and what had happened in the hospital, everything else stopped. He listened carefully, feeling a mixture of fear, sadness, and anger. His daughter was in pain and had been ignored by the hospital staff, the very people who were supposed to care for her. Dr. Sinha quickly contacted the hospital's chief administrator, a calm and efficient man named Mr. Kapoor. He explained the situation. Rhea had a broken leg and was waiting too long for help in the emergency room. He asked Mr. Kapoor to check the hospital's cameras to understand what really happened and to make sure that Rhea was receiving immediate care. Back at the hospital, Mr. Kapoor called the security office and asked for the CCTV footage from the emergency room area. When he saw the videos, he was shocked. The footage clearly showed Nurse Mina ignoring Rhea, talking on her phone, and dismissing the requests for help. It was a serious failure of duty. Mr. Kapoor immediately alerted the chief medical officer, Dr. Rao, and asked her to take quick action. Dr. Rao hurried to the emergency room and personally oversaw Rhea's care. She ensured that Rhea was given the highest priority for treatment and spoke kindly to the frightened girl. She reassured Rhea that she was in good hands now and that everything possible would be done to help her heal. Meanwhile, Nurse Mina was still unaware that the hospital owner's daughter had been waiting for hours. She had gone back to her regular duties, chatting with other staff and managing patients as usual. She did not realize that her behavior was being watched closely by the hospital management. The hospital's atmosphere began to change as news about the incident started to spread quietly among the staff. Many people were surprised and upset. Some felt guilty because they had seen Raya in pain but did nothing. Others worried about what consequences might come. Dr. Sinha's plane landed late that evening. He arrived at the hospital with a calm but serious expression. His heart ached for his daughter, and he was determined to find out exactly what had happened. The moment he entered the hospital, the staff sensed his presence. Nurses stopped their conversations and doctors looked at their shoes. Everyone knew that something important was about to happen. Dr. Sinha went straight to Ria's room. He found her resting quietly, her leg bandaged and in a cast. She looked tired but was smiling weakly when she saw her father. He sat beside her bed, held her hand gently, and asked her how she was feeling. Ria told him about the pain and how scared she was in the waiting room. She said that Nurse Mina had ignored her and that no one had helped her quickly enough. Dr. Sinha listened, carefully, his eyes soft but filled with sadness. He promised Ria that no one would be treated that way in his hospital ever again. He told her that her courage was amazing and that she was very brave. Later that night, Dr. Sinha called a meeting with the hospital's senior staff. He asked for a full report on the emergency room's actions that day. He wanted to understand why the system had failed. The staff shared the details, admitting that Nurse Mina had been distracted and careless. Dr. Sinha then asked for the security footage to be shown in the meeting. The room was silent as the video played, showing Nurse Mina's behavior, ignoring Ria, talking on her phone, and refusing to give attention. When the video ended, Dr. Sinha looked around at the faces of his staff. Some looked ashamed, others nervous. He spoke calmly but firmly. He said that this hospital was built with one purpose: to care for every patient equally, with kindness and respect. He reminded them that no one, not even the owner's daughter, should have to wait, in pain, without help. Dr. Sinha said this was a lesson for everyone and that change had to happen immediately. Nurse Mina was called into the room. She did not expect this. She had thought her behavior was normal and that the emergency room was always busy. When she realized the gravity of the situation and that she had been ignoring the owner's daughter, she felt a deep shock and shame. Her face turned pale and she struggled to find words. Dr. Sinha explained to her that this was not just about one patient, but about the hospital's reputation and, most importantly, the lives they were responsible for. He told her that there would be a formal review and that consequences would follow if care was neglected again. Over the next few days, Nurse Mina was temporarily suspended from her duties while the hospital conducted a full investigation. The staff was given special training on emergency care and empathy. A new system was introduced where patients and their families could give anonymous feedback about their experience in the hospital. Dr. Sinha also met with Ria's teachers and friends. He thanked Mrs. Sharma for her courage in calling him and supporting Ria during the difficult time. He promised that the hospital would do better and that Ria's experience would lead to real improvements. Ria was slowly recovering. She was in good spirits despite the pain. She started to feel stronger each day and was excited to return to school once her leg healed. The experience had made her braver and more aware of how important kindness was, especially from those who take care of others. Word of Ria's story spread in the city, not as gossip, but as a message. Many people talked about how hospitals must always treat patients with respect, no matter who they are. Some parents shared their own experiences, and a few staff members from other hospitals called Dr. Sinha to learn how he was handling the situation. Dr. Sinha became even more determined to make his hospital a model for care and compassion. He started new programs for staff training and created a patient support team to ensure no one was ever ignored again. He invited experts to speak about empathy and patient rights, hoping to change the culture from the inside out. Raya, though young, understood the importance of what was happening. She knew her pain and waiting had not been for nothing. She told her friends that everyone deserves kindness, especially when they are scared or hurt. Her story became a quiet, but powerful, reminder to all the hospital staff and patients that day. The young doctor, Arjun, who had hesitated earlier, learned from this experience too. He promised himself he would always speak up for patients, no matter how new he was or how busy things seemed. He saw that sometimes courage means standing up even when it is hard. The hospital slowly returned to normal, but things had changed. The emergency room was cleaner, quieter, and more organized. Nurses and doctors checked on patients more carefully. There was a new sense of respect and care in the air, and through it all, Dr. Sinha stayed close to his daughter, making sure she was healing well. He was proud of her strength and grateful for the lessons she had unknowingly taught everyone at the hospital. This part of the story shows how one small act, a call for help, can change many lives. It reminds us that even when people make mistakes, there is hope for forgiveness and better days ahead. It teaches that caring for others is not just a job, but a responsibility that must be taken seriously, especially when lives depend on it. After Dr. Rajveer Sinha arrived at the hospital, things began to change very quickly. The calm and quiet man who owned the hospital was there, and everyone could feel his presence deeply. The hospital staff knew him as a hard-working doctor who cared a lot about his patients and his hospital. He was not just a businessman, but a man who had built the hospital with love and dedication. Now, seeing his daughter hurt and treated badly had made him serious and determined to act. Ria was resting in her hospital bed. Her leg was in a heavy cast, and the pain was still there but less sharp after the surgery and the medicine. She was awake, watching her father enter the room. When their eyes met, she smiled weakly and tried to sit up a little. Dr. Sinha gently put a hand on her shoulder and told her to rest, but he was happy to see that she was strong. He talked to her quietly, asking about how she felt, and promised to stay close. Raya felt safe for the first time in many hours. At the same time, Dr. Sinha called for a meeting with the hospital's top doctors, nurses, and administrators. He wanted a full and honest report about what had happened since Raya arrived. The hospital director asked questions carefully, listening closely to every detail. The staff explained how the emergency room was crowded, how some nurses were busy, and how the girl had waited a long time before being treated. Dr. Sinha wanted to know everything, including why the nurse had ignored Raya. He asked the chief medical officer to show the CCTV footage from that morning. When the video was played, everyone in the room watched in silence. The footage clearly showed Nurse Meena looking at Raya, without any sympathy, talking on her phone and refusing to help even when asked several times. The nurse seemed careless, distracted, and completely unaware of the pain she was causing. Meena was in the room, and when she saw the video, her face changed color. She was shocked and embarrassed. She knew she had made a terrible mistake, but seeing it on the screen made it very real. She looked down and did not speak. Some of the other staff members were also upset. They had seen the nurse's behavior but did not say anything at the time. Now they understood how important it was to stand up and help patients no matter what. Dr. Sinha spoke calmly but firmly. He said that the hospital's most important rule was to care for patients with respect and kindness. No one should ever be ignored or made to wait in pain, whether they were rich or poor, important or unknown. He explained how the hospital was built to be a place where everyone could feel safe and cared for. He told the staff that this was not just about one incident, but about the entire hospital culture. Everyone needed to work together to make sure something like this never happened again. He said that they must all remember why they became doctors and nurses, to help people in their most difficult moments. After the meeting, Dr. Sinha made some important decisions. Nurse Meena would be suspended from her job while the hospital reviewed her behavior. She would be given a chance to explain herself, but the hospital had to send a clear message that ignoring patients was unacceptable. At the same time, the hospital began working on new rules and training programs to improve patient care and staff responsibility. In the days that followed, the hospital staff talked quietly among themselves about what had happened. Some felt angry at Nurse Meena, but others felt sorry for her. They understood that sometimes nurses and doctors get tired and overwhelmed, but that was never an excuse for bad care. The hospital started a new system for patients and their families to share their experiences. This allowed people to speak up if they ever felt ignored or mistreated. The hospital also organized workshops where doctors and nurses learned about empathy, patience, and teamwork. Meanwhile, Ria was recovering steadily. She was still in pain, but her spirits were higher. She was happy to see how seriously her father was taking the situation. He often came to visit her, bringing flowers and books to keep her busy. He told her stories about his work and how hospitals were supposed to be places of hope and healing. Ria's teachers and friends also visited her in the hospital. They brought gifts and cards, cheering her up. She felt lucky to have so many people who cared about her. Even though she had suffered a lot, she was learning important lessons about courage, kindness, and standing up for what is right. One afternoon, Dr. Sinha held a special meeting for the hospital staff. This time, it was not just about rules and punishment, but about inspiring everyone to do better. He shared stories from his own life, about patients he had cared for and times when he had to make tough decisions. He reminded the staff that every patient was a person with feelings, fears, and hopes. He asked the staff to imagine themselves in the patient's place, how they would want to be treated if they were scared or in pain. This helped many doctors and nurses to see their work differently. They promised to be more attentive and compassionate. Nurse Meena, who had been suspended, was asked to attend special counseling and training. She felt deeply sorry for what she had done and wanted to make amends. She understood now that being a nurse was more than just giving medicine or taking vital signs. It was about caring for the whole person. At the same time, the hospital made plans to improve its emergency room. They hired more nurses and doctors to reduce waiting times. They set up a special team to monitor patient care and respond quickly if anyone was in danger or distress. Outside the hospital, the news about Ria's story had started to spread. People in the city were talking about the importance of respect and kindness in hospitals. Some parents shared their own stories of good and bad experiences, and local newspapers wrote articles about patient rights. Dr. Sinha was invited to speak. On television and radio shows, he talked about how hospitals must balance technology and medicine with human warmth and empathy. He said that no matter how busy or difficult the job, healthcare workers must never forget the heart of their work, helping people feel safe and cared for. Ria's story became an example of how even small actions could make a big difference. It showed how ignoring one patient could affect many lives, and how one family's courage could bring positive change. In the hospital, the culture slowly began to shift. Doctors and nurses started paying more attention to their patients, listening carefully, and offering comfort. They checked more often to see if anyone was in pain or needed help. The hospital became quieter and more organized, with patients feeling more welcome and respected. Ria was proud of the changes. She knew her own experience had helped others. She dreamed of becoming a nurse one day, so she could care for patients with kindness and patience. She wanted to make sure no one would ever feel ignored again. The young Dr. Arjun, who had hesitated earlier, became more confident. He started speaking up when he saw patients in trouble and encouraged others to do the same. He learned that courage sometimes meant challenging the system to protect those who could not protect themselves. As weeks turned into months, the hospital's reputation grew. People trusted it more, knowing that the owners and staff cared deeply about every patient. Dr. Sinha continued to work tirelessly, making sure the hospital remained a place where healing and kindness went hand in hand. This part of the story shows how truth and responsibility can bring healing not only to one person, but to an entire community. It teaches that when people take ownership of their mistakes and work to fix them, real change is possible. It reminds us that care and respect are the foundations of medicine, and that every life deserves to be treated with dignity. Ria's journey was not over, but with her family's love and the hospital's new commitment, she was hopeful for the future. Her story became a light for others, a reminder that even in difficult times, kindness and courage can make all the difference. Days passed by slowly for Ria as she stayed in the hospital recovering from her broken leg. The pain was still there, sometimes sharp and sometimes dull, but what hurt her more was the memory of being ignored and left alone in the emergency room. It was a feeling she couldn't easily forget, the feeling that her pain didn't matter to some people. But now things were beginning to change around her, and she was starting to see hope again. Her father, Dr. Rajveer Sinha, stayed by her side as much as possible. He was a busy man, always moving between the hospital's meetings and his responsibilities, but whenever he could, he came to check on Ria. He brought her favorite snacks, books, and even small toys to keep her spirits up. He also made sure the doctors and nurses treating her were kind and gentle, and he asked the hospital staff to pay special attention to her comfort. Ria's friends and teachers visited often. Mrs. Sharma, the teacher who had stayed with her after the accident, brought stories and jokes to make Ria laugh. Her classmates sent her colorful cards and drawings. These visits made Ria feel loved and supported. She realized that even though the accident had hurt her body, the kindness of others was healing her heart. At the hospital, things were changing too. Dr. Sinha had begun a new program to improve the quality of care. He knew that the problem was not just one nurse or one bad day, but a system that sometimes forgot the importance of compassion. He wanted to build a hospital where every patient, no matter who they were, felt safe and respected. The hospital began holding daily meetings, called care circles. In these meetings, doctors, nurses, and support staff gathered to talk about their patients. They shared stories, challenges, and ideas about how to make care better. Everyone was encouraged to speak honestly, whether they were a senior doctor or a new nurse. One of the most important lessons Dr. Sinha taught during these care circles was to see the patient as a whole person. It wasn't enough to just fix broken bones or give medicine. They needed to listen, understand fears, and offer comfort. This new way of thinking slowly began to change how the hospital worked. Nurse Meena, who had been suspended after ignoring Ria, was asked to join the care circles when she returned to work. She had been through special training and counseling, and she was determined to improve. At first, many staff members were hesitant to accept her back. But over time, as she showed real effort to change, she began to regain their trust. Ria was curious about what was happening in the hospital. She learned that her story had inspired many changes, and that made her proud. She realized that even though her experience was painful, it had helped make the hospital a better place for others. One day, Dr. Sinha invited Ria to visit the hospital's new patient support center. It was a special place where patients and their families could talk to counselors, get information about their treatment, and find comfort. Ria was amazed at how thoughtful everything was. There were bright colors on the walls, soft chairs, and even a small play area for children. At the support center, Ria met Meena again. This time, Meena was gentle and kind. She apologized to Ria for the way she had been treated before and thanked her for giving her a chance to learn and improve. Ria smiled and told her it was okay. She believed that everyone deserved a second chance. Outside the hospital, the news about these positive changes spread quickly. Patients who had once been afraid to come to the hospital began to trust it again. People said they felt safe knowing the hospital was working hard to care for everyone equally. Dr. Sinha's efforts also caught the attention of government health officials. They invited him to speak about his ideas for improving patient care in hospitals across the region. He shared his story about Ria and explained how treating patients with kindness was just as important as medicine and technology. Back at school, Ria slowly returned to her normal life. She walked with crutches and sometimes needed help getting around, but her smile was brighter than ever. She told her friends about what she had learned. That courage means speaking up for yourself and others, and kindness can change the world. Her teachers noticed that she had grown stronger, not just physically but emotionally. Ria was more confident and brave. She spoke openly about her experience and encouraged her classmates to always be kind and helpful to people in need. One afternoon, Ria's school organized a special event called Kindness Day. Students and teachers shared stories about helping others and being compassionate. Ria was invited to speak. She stood in front of the crowd and told them about her accident in the hospital. She explained how the care she received after being ignored made a big difference, and how everyone deserved respect and attention. Her speech touched many hearts. People applauded and promised to be kinder in their own lives. Ria felt proud that her story had become a message of hope and change. At the hospital, the staff continued working hard to improve. They introduced new technology to track patients' pain levels and ensure no one was left unattended. They also set up a patient feedback system where people could share their experiences directly with the hospital leadership. Dr. Sinha worked closely with a team of young doctors and nurses to create a culture of respect. He encouraged them to take time with each patient, even if the hospital was busy. He reminded them that small acts of kindness, a smile, a comforting word, a gentle touch, could heal wounds that medicine could not. Ria often visited the hospital during her recovery. She enjoyed seeing how the staff treated each patient with care. She liked talking to the children in the pediatric ward and reading stories to them. It made her feel happy and useful. One day, Dr. Sinha surprised Ria by inviting her to a special ceremony at the hospital. The hospital was being recognized for its improvements in patient care and kindness. Leaders from the city and other hospitals came to congratulate them. Ria felt proud to be part of this important moment. During the ceremony, Dr. Sinha gave a speech, praising the hospital staff for their hard work and dedication. He also thanked Ria for inspiring everyone to be better. Ria's heart swelled with happiness. She knew her difficult journey had led to something wonderful. As Ria's leg healed, she dreamed about her future. She wanted to become a nurse or a doctor someday, so she could help others just like she had been helped. She wanted to make sure that no child or adult would ever be ignored or feel afraid in a hospital again. Her parents supported her dreams and encouraged her to study hard. They knew that Ria's experience had given her a unique strength and understanding that would make her an excellent caregiver. The hospital continued to grow as a center of excellence, but its greatest achievement was the change in its heart. The story of the girl with the broken leg who had been ignored but had the courage to speak up became a symbol of hope. It reminded everyone that even when mistakes happen, people can learn, grow, and build a better future together. Ria's recovery was not just about healing her body, but also about healing the hospital and the community around her. Her story taught people that every person deserves kindness and respect, especially when they are most vulnerable. The hospital staff learned to see patients not just as cases or numbers, but as human beings with feelings and stories. They learned that good care is about more than medicine. It's about love, patience, and understanding. And Ria? She grew up knowing that her courage had changed many lives. She carried that lesson with her always, ready to help and care for others in need. Her story was a light that shone brightly in the hospital's halls, reminding everyone why they do the work they do. After many weeks, Ria's broken leg started to heal. The cast that once made her feel heavy and uncomfortable was removed, and she took her first steps again, slowly and carefully. The hospital rooms where she had spent so much time now felt like memories she could look back on with a sense of strength. What had started as a painful experience became a powerful story of courage, change, and hope. Ria's life was no longer just about the accident, but about everything she had learned and the new future she was ready to embrace. Her recovery was slow but steady. Every day, physical therapists came to help her regain strength and balance. At first, the pain was sharp when she tried to move her leg, but with time, the pain softened and was replaced by a new feeling, a growing confidence in her own body. Each small step was a victory, and she celebrated them quietly with a smile. Her father, Dr. Rajveer Sinha, remained by her side throughout, not just as her dad, but as a doctor who deeply understood what it meant to heal. He was proud of Ria's bravery and the way she faced every challenge with a positive spirit. He often told her stories about patients who overcame great obstacles, hoping to inspire her more. Ria listened, learning that strength didn't mean never being afraid. It meant moving forward even when you were scared. The hospital itself continued to grow in ways that reflected the lessons learned from Ria's experience. The culture of kindness and patient-centered care that Dr. Sinha worked so hard to build became a permanent part of the hospital's identity. Staff members were no longer just employees. They were caregivers, friends, and sometimes family to the patients. One day, as Ria walked through the hospital halls with crutches, she noticed the changes all around. The emergency room was brighter and more welcoming. There were new signs encouraging patients to speak up if they needed help. Nurses checked on patients more frequently, smiling and talking gently. Doctors listened patiently to patients' concerns. Everyone seemed more aware of the human side of healthcare. Ria often visited the pediatric ward to see children who were sick or injured. She loved reading stories to them and cheering them up. The nurses and doctors there treated her like a special guest, happy to see her growing stronger. Sometimes she helped the staff by handing out toys or coloring books, wanting to give back even a little of the kindness she had received. Her school life was also blossoming. She returned to her classes with new confidence, and her classmates looked up to her. They saw her as brave and strong, a girl who had faced pain and fear but never lost her spirit. Ria used her voice to speak about kindness and respect, encouraging her friends to stand up for each other. The story of the girl who had been ignored but then helped by her own father, the hospital owner, spread far beyond their city. Many people found inspiration in her journey. They saw that one person's courage could lead to big changes in a whole system. Newspapers and TV channels interviewed Dr. Sinha and Ria, and their story was shared on social media, touching the hearts of thousands. Dr. Sinha and the hospital team were invited to conferences to talk about their new approach to patient care. They explained how listening to patients and treating them with kindness was as important as medical skills. Their work became a model for other hospitals in the region, spreading the message that healthcare is about healing bodies and hearts. Meanwhile, Nurse Meena continued her own journey of change. After her suspension, she had taken the hospital's training seriously. She worked hard to rebuild trust with patients and staff. Her story became one of redemption, a reminder that people can learn from their mistakes and grow into better versions of themselves. Meena started volunteering for community health programs and became an advocate for patient rights. She often spoke to new nurses about the importance of empathy and responsibility. Her change helped the hospital heal not only from the inside but also in the eyes of the community. Ria's parents supported her dreams of becoming a nurse one day. They knew she had a special gift, the ability to understand others' pain and offer comfort. Ria studied hard, motivated by the hope that she could be part of the change she had seen. She wanted to ensure that no child or adult ever felt ignored or uncared for in a hospital. One summer afternoon, the hospital held a special celebration to mark a year since the accident. Many people came, patients, families, doctors, nurses, and community leaders. The event was filled with music, food, and stories of hope. Ria was the guest of honor. She stood on stage, her leg healed and her smile bright. She told the crowd about her journey, the pain, the fear, but also the kindness and courage. She spoke about the importance of speaking up when something was wrong, and how kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. Her words moved many to tears, and the applause that followed was long and warm. Dr. Sinha stood beside her, proud and emotional. He knew that the hospital had changed not just because of new rules or technology, but because of the human stories like Ria's that reminded everyone why they do the work they do. The hospital announced new scholarships for students interested in nursing and medicine, especially those who wanted to work in patient-centered care. Ria was invited to help select the recipients. This was her way of giving back, helping others who shared her dream to make hospitals kinder places. As the celebration ended, Ria walked through the hospital one last time before going home. She paused by the emergency room, where it all began. She remembered the fear she felt, the pain, and the moments she was ignored. But now, that place felt different. It was full of hope and promise. She smiled, knowing that her story had helped create something better. The hospital was no longer just a building, but a community of care, respect, and healing. And she was a part of that community, stronger, braver, and ready to face the future. Ria's journey taught everyone an important lesson: that kindness is powerful, courage can change systems, and every person deserves to be seen and cared for. It reminded doctors, nurses, and patients alike that healthcare is not just about medicine. It is about love, respect, and the human connection that makes healing possible. Her story lived on in the halls of the hospital, in the hearts of the people who worked there, and in the lives of the patients who came through its doors. It was a story of hope, change, and the power of standing up for what is right. And as Ria looked ahead, she knew that no matter what challenges came next, she would face them with the same courage and kindness that had carried her through the hardest time of her life.